Hello, everyone. Will here with the 1906 diary entry. I hope you weren't too worried yesterday about what was going to happen with Dimitri's smallpox vaccine. So we'll find out, even though we are now skipping forward quite a bit. We were on June 3rd yesterday. And today we are on June 19th. So we've skipped forward more than 2 weeks. And we will be skipping forward again in this very video from the 19th of June to the 12th of July, because the 12th of July diary entry is only 2 sentences. And then there's a big diary entry. So I thought, well, might as well do 12th July today along with the 19th of June, because then we have another leap and Dimitri will be going forward all the way to September. I think September 15th, and he'll be back at school in the sense of doing his lessons again. He's already actually starting that in June. And let's dive into the diary entry. So it's the 19th of June, 1906, and it's a Monday. Luckily, we didn't get the smallpox vaccination. MN had a frightful reaction. She was really sick, and Alesya was also a little affected. Maria, despite what she says, is in love with Alesya, whom I don't like. She's very promiscuous. We were fishing every day at one spot behind the reeds, and naturally when the soldiers found out about it, they went there at night and caught 80, and now it's been 2 days since anything has been caught there at all. Today I got up at 7:45, and at 8:45 went to have coffee with Tjotja. At 9 o'clock I had a lesson with GM. He teaches very well. And then at 12 o'clock, I went swimming. It was 20.5 degrees in the water. After lunch at 2:30, I had a history lesson, and after tea, I went fishing and caught 3 small and rather nice pike, 1.5 pounds. After dinner, we went for a ride, and I drove the 2 grays, and this is a weird way of putting things, but I drove the 2 grays and had emotions not to upset the cart. Tjotja got a car. It's scary when it goes fast, but it's very quiet. All right, maybe it was a Tesla. Okay, here we go. Even though 16 days have passed, he's filling us in on the smallpox vaccination and saying that he and Maria didn't end up getting it. Maybe it sounds like there was a bit of worry after what happened to Maria Nikolaevna Laming, who was apparently quite sick. So, but these other girls, these other children, I should say, apparently got it. Alesya and her little sister Sofichka, and Alesya got a little sick. But yeah, it seems like Ella was not willing to risk Dimitri and Maria getting sick. Maybe she thought Dimitri was thought within the family, I think mainly because he'd been born at 7 months, to be a little physically frail. And so maybe she decided that he shouldn't get it after all, and that there wasn't any risk to speak of him getting smallpox. Okay, so now we have this update on Alesya. So in the last diary entry, Dimitri told us that he had foolishly fallen in love with her. Well, that was 16 days ago, and a lot can happen in 16 days. So now he doesn't like her. And Maria is in love with her. That's quite an interesting statement. He is definitely using the verb not just for love. He loves her, or she loves her, but the verb for in love. So what does he mean by that? Well, I don't know. Maybe he's been teasing his sister about it, because he writes despite what she says. So apparently he has been prodding her on that, and probably making fun of her a little and saying, yeah, you're in love with Alesya. The sort of thing little brothers do. Meanwhile, the reason he doesn't like her is because, according to him and according to the adjective he's using, she's very promiscuous. So what did he know at age 14 about promiscuity? I don't know. Is he using a word that he doesn't really understand? That's possible. It's the same word that, well, I mean, apparently with Rasputin, his name didn't come from the word, although it sounds like it did, because that would also be the word for sort of someone who's involved in debauchery. And so even though his name didn't have that origin, it was very apt for him. So anyway, that's the word Dmitri uses. He throws these words around. He actually used the word that means obscene when he was talking about his aunt going out on a boat on the river with the soldiers who were singing. Sounds like it was actually a nice thing to do, but that was the word he chose to use. And now for Alesya, he's using the word promiscuous. And based on that, I think she must have been a teenager, possibly even older than him. Maybe she was Maria's age. And it was the little one, Sofishka, who had a crush on him. He'd had a crush on Alesya, but, maybe it wasn't reciprocated, and so he decided, and she was interested in somebody else, so he decided to call her promiscuous. All right, he's keeping up with his fishing, but there's been this little snag. The soldiers have found his secret place, or the secret place that he goes to with the usual men that he goes fishing with, and it's hidden behind some reeds, but the soldiers have discovered it, and the minute they found out about it, they snuck out there at night and went fishing and caught 80 fish, and now it's basically been fished out. He hasn't been able to catch anything there for 2 days. So what happened when this came to light? Did the soldiers get in trouble? They were definitely favorites of Ella's, so I doubt it. But apparently, when Dmitri says they went there at night, apparently they were doing it secretly. You would think that it would be therapeutic for them to be able to go fishing, but apparently they felt that they needed to do it at night, unless, of course, the fishing they thought was better at night, and they were too busy during the day. I'm always speculating too much on these things. So the usual daily schedule, getting up before 8 o'clock. Chotya is a little late today because they're not having coffee until 8:45. Then at 9 o'clock, Dmitri has a lesson, and things are going well with GM. He compliments GM on his teaching. Maybe the other tutors aren't there, and so GM has taken over the teaching task himself. And later on in September, Dmitri will return to the topic of how he and GM are getting along, but they seem to be in a good phase of their relationship. And he's able to go swimming. The water is warm enough. We don't know if he went swimming in the river or in the pond or lake or whatever other thing there was. He has his history lesson, and then when he's fishing, he catches, as he says, 3 small and rather nice pike, and then in parentheses he gives this information without saying if it applied to all 3 of them. He just says 1.5 pounds. So maybe that was the biggest one. I don't know, but yeah, I have no idea how big pike tend to be. And I'm still waiting for someone to write in and comment and tell me if these are river fish or lake fish, the kind of fish that he's been talking about. I was a little surprised to find out that my friends who are avid fishermen, I have two friends who just, they would fish absolutely every day if they could, and they didn't seem to know whether these fish, these particular kind, the chub and the bleak, whether they didn't recognize the names immediately, and then they didn't seem to know if they were lake fish or not. My friends tend to fish in the Columbia River, and they get salmon and sometimes sturgeon. I think they have to throw the sturgeon back. It's catch and release. And yeah, when I was a kid at the lake, it was all catfish, perch, I think, and the carp would be thrown back. Unless they weren't, unless some rude person threw them into the tall grass. Okay, let's see. So then he makes this weird comment that I don't understand about his emotions and not upsetting the cart, presumably, that the two grays were pulling. And Ella has gotten a car. He doesn't use the verb for buy, just forget, so I'm not sure. But yeah, Chotya got a car. And when it goes fast, it's scary, but it must be a really nice car because it's quiet. And I would tend to think that cars back then were quite noisy, but maybe just in comparison with other cars, this particular one is quiet. And Dmitri never liked to be riding in a car that was being driven quickly, or that was being driven fast. That was a particular thing that he didn't like, that persisted into his adult life. And I've actually heard accounts of himself driving fast, not only in a car but in a boat. But if that was true, maybe it was because if he was behind the wheel, then he felt confident. But when somebody else was behind the wheel, several times he recorded in his diaries his displeasure with that and how nervous it made him when somebody else was driving fast. Okay, so that's it for the 19th June diary entry, and we're immediately jumping ahead to the 12th July, and in days to come, he will probably catch up to us and surpass us, so he'll go beyond. Well, he'll definitely catch up to us. In the next session, he'll be at mid-September, and I'm doing this on the 3rd of September, so we'll see what kind of weather they're having when he is in September, and not just us. As you can see, it's another, well, you can't really see because there is sunlight, but it's more or less another overcast day here. All right, here we go to the 12th of July, very short. We are now having a gathering of big guests. Babushka was here. Okay, so he uses the word for a congress, a serious get-together of people. But maybe like with promiscuous, these are just words that he's trying out, so to speak. Or maybe it's meant, sort of a little bit ironically. I don't know. So people are there, and they're important people. And one of the important people who was there but has now left was Babushka. So Grandma happened to be the Queen of Greece, or I think her official title was the Queen of the Hellenes, or the Queen of the Greeks rather than the Queen of Greece. And her name was Olga Konstantinovna, and she was the sister of Uncle Kostya, the uncle whom Dmitri liked so much, although Uncle Kostya was actually his great uncle, but he had children Dmitri's age, so he must have been younger than Olga. So Olga was the daughter of one of my favorite Grand Dukes, certainly one that I respect above most of the others, who was Konstantin Nikolaevich, the great reformer. Alexander II gets all the credit for the reforms during his reign, but, really it was his brother who was the impetus for that. So Olga, maybe that was where Dmitri and Maria got their intelligence, because that was a branch of the family that were very intelligent and very literary. And yeah, so Olga I think she spent a lot of time in Russia. The accounts I've heard about her in Greece were that she was, she was very, very Russian and homesick when she wasn't in Russia. And when ships of the Russian fleet would stop in Greece, she would always go directly down to the pier and talk to the men and invite the officers to Tati, I think it's called, the Greek estate, the Greek royal family's estate. And one of the officers she invited was my friend Semyon Fabritsky, whose memoirs I did a translation of. He ended up being a Russian admiral. At that time, he wasn't yet. But, my friend Ed has said that it doesn't seem to him that Olga was a very hands-on grandmother. And I must say it doesn't really seem to me that way as well, but she was definitely coming out to Ilinskaya to see her grandchildren, so that was good. But yeah, Dmitri doesn't say much about her, so I tend to think that Ed is right about that. I remember later that one of her grandchildren had, or a nephew or someone, I think it was a grandson, had a real crisis with his lungs, with pneumonia, and Olga just rushed to his bedside, and she doesn't seem to have done that. She doesn't seem to have been that engaged. Maybe Dmitri reminded her of the fact that her daughter had died in childbirth. But that's just speculation on my part. And my mentor, my translating mentor, David Chavchavadze, was also, I think she was his great-grandmother. And he actually met her once when he was a little boy. And he made some disparaging comment to her about her being Greek, something really nasty. And he was very little, so he'd heard it somewhere. So that didn't go over well. But anyway, I am digressing. As I say, unfortunately, Dmitri doesn't have much to say about her. If you remember in one of the previous diary entries, he talks about getting a watch from his grandfather, Olga's husband, George I of Greece, and he thought it was a great watch. He was happy about that, but it wasn't given to him by George himself. And yeah, it was given to him by some other member of the family, I guess, whom George had given it to and asked him to pass it on to his grandson. And I don't know that Dmitri and Maria, before the revolution, ever visited Greece. I don't have diary entries or letters for that entire period. But yeah, it doesn't seem like they ever went to visit their grandparents in Greece, and George would be assassinated in 1913. I don't think it was a political assassination. I need to look that up. I think it was more just a disgruntled person with a gun. But anyway, come back next time, and we'll have a very interesting diary entry for September, for mid-September. I think it was the 15th. Very interesting. And you, like me, can try to figure out if Dmitri and Maria are now, and Ella are in Moscow, or if they're still at Ilinskaya, because he doesn't say. And it seems like they're still doing outdoor activities that make me think they were still in Ilinskaya, but we can talk about that when we have the next session. All right, do come back. Bye.